In this episode of OneMinding, we delve into the beauty and transformative power of grace. One of the most impactful ways that grace manifests is in the moments of transition that we experience where we go from darkness to light. When we feel lost, alone, or in despair, it can be challenging to see a way out. However, when we experience grace, we are lifted up from the darkness and shown a path towards hope, healing, and infinite possibility. Join us as we explore this beautiful subject and discover how grace can transform our lives for the better. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, lovely friends. Hi, Gem.
Hello. Hi, everybody. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Hi, Witty. Hi, Hexoshi, Francois, Wonder, Chris, and Tarctic Monkey. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, lovely to have you. It was almost like we had the Amazing Grace music at the beginning for the podcast people, but it felt like people were kind of walking into OneMinding one by one. And as I was seeing the people come in, it was really magical. So thank you all for being here, and Amazing Grace. Yeah. What a wonderful subject. It's a pretty big subject, and you're definitely leading because we only sort of came up with the idea today, and I was sat here and grace wasn't really bringing many thoughts to my head. So I sat there and Googled for a bit, and then I thought, what am I doing? I can't learn about grace in an hour. So maybe it's an evening of education for me as well. So yeah, looking forward to it, Molls.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because when I came up with the title earlier, I was like, oh yeah, I want to talk about grace. Now, I'm not an expert. We'll kind of play around and we'll see what it means, because I think when we use words and it's just a word, it can have so many different meanings. And I actually thought it may put some people off listening, because actually the word can have religious connotations to some people. And obviously we're not going to talk about that. We'll touch on it and we'll kind of touch on that meaning. But actually what we're looking at is what it means for each of us. What does grace look like to you? Because I've got a few different versions of it, and it's such a beautiful word. You know, actually, when I think of grace, I know, Gem, you said earlier you were sat and I actually gave her some work to do before. I said, just sit and think what it means to you. And she came back and she's like, oh, it just means this thing, which she'll talk about later, but I don't really know. I've never really thought about it. And I guess that's for a lot of us. I don't sit here thinking about grace all the time, but I know when I've experienced it, and I know that for me, it's quite a powerful thing, and it can actually just point to the true meaning of who we are. And obviously, every week, OneMinding does that. That's what we're here to do. We can just check out. But I'll do that before we get into the bulk of the show, and I'll just hand back to Gem to see what we've got to say and any thank yous.
Yeah, I guess myself, I'm going to go in with a complete open mind, because I'm sure I've got feelings around grace, but the actual word, not much comes up. So later on in the show, if anyone has any thoughts or any questions that you want to ask, as always, just request and we'll bring you up later, or message me if you don't want to speak. But just want to say thank you to Vemp, our sponsors, and all of you for being here every week. Really looking forward to it, and thank you all so much.
Yeah, and we're going to have a little announcement at the end of the show as well. So that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So, OneMinding. You know, it's that hour in the week, hopefully, where you retreat from the world. You retreat from the world in your head, the world that you imagine in your mind, and that mind that is always creating a story, always creating circumstance, always creating something for you to think about or analyze. It's always on the go. But actually, also, the mind brought you here. It brought you to this conversation. So we can thank it for that. We can thank it for giving us the time to just spend an hour in a space before thought, to touch something that is much richer than we understand. You know, we get so caught up in the outside world and trying to get things from the outside world and thinking that that's going to give us what we need. We really overlook the going within. And the going within is where everything that we're actually looking for is. Now, with this episode, I kind of feel it's more than ever about the feeling. I mean, it's always about the feeling, but if you think about grace, it's kind of grace that called you here today. It's that benevolence. It's that something within us that allows us to explore the inner worlds. It's something that is revealed, and it looks like there's an us doing it. But I can assure you from what I've seen and from my work with clients and from doing groups is actually it's the grace shining through that drops us out of the mind and allows us to experience something deeper. And as I said, some people can be put off by the title because it can appear that it's a religious thing. You know, it has Christian theology associations. I actually looked and it says grace is the sacraments and other religious agencies viewed as the means by which divine grace is imparted to the soul or by which growth in grace is promoted. It can also be a short prayer of thanks. You know, it's a giving thanks. So it's going to have very different meanings for everybody. And that's okay. We're not here to give it one set meaning. We actually want to wake up what it means to you. You know, the word God can have so many connotations to it. People get really put off by the word. I mean, I think it's a natural, beautiful word. I don't try and give it meaning because I have no idea. You know, how could I possibly know what God is? It's impossible. My finite mind can't understand the infinite. How I look at things is there is an infinite energy, there is infinite potential, there is something greater than us that created life and this experience. And that intelligence is what we try to point to as best we can. And, you know, often we say it's like trying to point to fire with ice. The closer you get, the more there's nothing there to point with, because we're talking about something that's kind of indescribable. And I guess what I feel about words like grace is that if we dig into them and really look at them at their deepest meaning, then they're kind of transporting us to that feeling. They're giving us that moment of understanding, that glimpse of truth. So that's why I came up with it earlier. It was just, oh, how beautiful. Let's talk about grace. I don't even know where it came from. It was just popped into my mind and it felt like a beautiful thing to explore. So as Gem said, I'd love you guys, if you have a understanding of it, if you have meaning to it, if you'd like to share, then please come up and do that, or just message Gem and she will read it out. So just take a moment and just think about what living in grace would mean to you. You know, what would it mean to live in grace? Many, many spiritual teachings actually talk about grace as the vehicle for the awakening. You'll hear many, many teachers that have awakened say that, grace came in and I saw the truth. So it's that grace that we're talking about. It's that deepest sense of the word. It's connected to being grateful, I guess. I think when we touch grace, it's completely organic and natural to feel incredibly grateful. That's just the experience of touching the energy that we would call grace, because it just shows us this deeper aspect. It shows us the perfection in the experience, in the moment, in this being human. But it's actually, for me, it points to more of the divine self. It points to this aspect of self that is before who we think we are. Yeah, that's why, as these spiritual teachers say, it was grace that woke them up. It's grace that wakes us all up. Again, it has so many meanings. It can also mean, and I think it does to me too, is that if I'm graceful, if I'm in grace, I'm naturally forgiving. So I'm grateful, I'm forgiving. All the qualities that I like to exhibit as a human, but don't always because I am a human, are there when I feel grace. It would be hard to have resentment, wouldn't it? It would be hard to hold on to anything when we truly feel grace, because I guess it's another word for unconditional love. So giving grace to another person is simply to forgive them, and to forgive them unconditionally. So it can have so many meanings. You can see how I'm opening up to the word today and been exploring what it means for me and seeing all these different meanings. But it really points back to this fundamental nature of who we are, of this beautiful experience that we get to have as a human being. And for me, it's those moments where that divinity comes through in my human experience, where I'm aware of that divinity, where I'm aware of the deeper meaning of who I am, when I'm touching something that is so beautiful, is so rich, has so much to it. It's really indescribable. We do the best that we can with words, but we've all had it. We've all many times had that experience. We may have attached it to the outside world, but it has always been our true nature. It's a dropping out of concept into as close as we possibly can get to the energy that created all of this, that creates our moment-to-moment experience, that creates everything that we always have been and always will be, and before that and after that. Because to me, the grace created the human experience, but it was there way before and it will be there way after. It is the infinite intelligence. There's another word for infinite intelligence. And we are, when we're at our most peaceful, when we're touching that space, that is our natural expression of it. I suppose grace in human form is the natural expression of touching something deeper about the human experience. There's something so mind-blowing about those moments where we touch something deeper. And it's called mind-blowing because it literally does blow our minds. Our conceptual mind cannot hang on in those moments. It has to dissolve. All the things that we think, all the problems that we have, all the bullshit that we make up, in those moments of pure grace, in those moments where we touch divinity, are blown away. Our mind is blown. We see it completely through the eyes of love. Now, our personal mind isn't built for that. Our personal mind actually isn't interested in love. It can make up that it is. It can project that it's interested in love. It will attach love to the things that it thinks it wants, but it's not unconditional love. Unconditional love has nothing to do with our personal self. It's the grace and our essential being shining through in the moment. It has nothing to do with our personal thought system. Our personal thought system gets that idea of love and takes it and turns it into something else. It turns it into a need. It turns it into an attachment. It turns it into a desire. And that's okay. That's what we're here to do, but it will make it conditional. The mind will take love and it will always make it conditional. And we all do that. I do that too. But knowing that that's what it does and that isn't truth can be incredibly freeing. Giving grace to another person has to be loving them unconditionally. Has to be that. But think how graceful that is to ourselves, that we could get to see that we get to have these momentary experiences of feeling unconditional love. All of us, no matter what, no matter your past, is available, is there. It's interesting. Think about to fall from grace. Think about that people say that. Now, because we live in this material world, people will attach that to a loss of status, a loss of respect, a loss of prestige maybe, but actually, grace is there underneath all of that. I don't believe we can fall from grace. I think grace is who we are underneath the thinking. No matter what, as I said, we are made of this energy. We are grace. We are unconditional love. It's Amazing Grace is the title of this talk. That is it. It is amazing. And as I said, we've all felt it. It could have been that you attached it to walking in nature, or you observed a sunset, or you were holding hands with someone you love. Just being present. That's what happened in those moments. That's what appeared. There was a presence that came through that allowed the feeling of grace. Always there. And someone said to me recently, and I absolutely loved it, and they spoke about nature. And what they said about nature is why we love nature. Apart from it's beautiful and we feel at one and pieces, it's completely honest. There's a total honesty in nature. I've never thought of it like that before. It was like, oh my God, it's a purity. It just is what it is. So that's what grace is. It's there, it's pure. It's those moments that shine through that are untouched by the conceptual mind, by the intellect, by our belief system. And it's beautiful to have a belief system. We're meant to have a belief system. And if you notice that we're talking about something that we all have beliefs around, how I'm speaking about grace is my belief system at play. We can't not add our belief system to anything that we're talking about. It's impossible. It's always tainted by belief, as it is meant to be. This isn't a mistake, and we can't undo that. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful being human. It's beautiful having a belief system. But when that belief system controls us, when that belief system is holding us back and tainting our experience in a negative way, that's when we hold the belief up to be viewed and to be challenged. I'm constantly holding my own beliefs up to be seen because I know that there's such freedom on the other side of a belief that is dissolved. And I'm going to make up a whole load of new ones. But, my work, when I work within mental health or with someone that just comes to me because they'd like to go through the process and see the world differently, is it has to start with the challenging of their belief system. Because that's where our world comes from. So again, when we talk about grace, yeah, I'm adding some of how I see it. It has to be my belief system. But I know when I've touched that space, my belief system isn't there. Okay, it's before the belief system. It's the oneness that we always point to with OneMinding. Everything, all that is, all that will ever be, it's there. It's there before what we think. It's there before what we believe. In fact, it's created all of those things. Our lens of experience, our lens of belief that we project, and that's how the world looks to us. It all comes from that one space. There is only one. There is only that. And that's incredibly loving and graceful. I've never not felt okay when I've had those glimpses of that space. And they are just glimpses. But those glimpses have completely and utterly transformed me and my life and how I see the world. One glimpse in particular took me from mental illness to mental well-being. That's the power also of what we're talking about. It's not limited by us. It can't be limited by us because we don't have that power. When it comes through, it blows it all away. It can completely dissolve the concepts and beliefs that have been holding us back in a heartbeat. They're gone. Because it's the power that created them. So of course it has the power for them to be changed. We are consciousness and grace in motion. We just forget about it all the time. And we think we're something other, and we think there's something to get, and we think that we need more. But ultimately, we're already it. It's there. As I say every week, it's in our being. It's not in our doing. Grace is when the light comes in a dark time. The fact that I went from mental illness to mental wellness, in my opinion, was grace. Gem, I'm sure, if she sits and thinks about it now, and I'll ask her when she comes on, is that there's grace there, that she found this understanding that has changed her life. And it's so archetypal. You see it throughout the stories that we hear, that we see, that life is made of, that people in the darkest of times come into the light. That isn't because of willpower. That isn't because of doing, although it may look like that. Grace came in. Something deeper comes in from within. It's revealed. That's a lovely way to put it. It's something deeper is revealed from within, and that light comes in. And to me, that is grace, the awakening process. And it can be, for some, it's huge and it's mind blowing in a moment and it's like bells and whistles. And for other people, it's very small, incremental insights that change how they see the world. And it's only ever the thinking that we have in the moment that hides this grace, that hides this love, that covers up the love that we are. Because but for judgment, there is only love. And think about how we all judge. All of us, me too. How easy it is to get into the mind and judge. How quickly the mind can grab onto something in the outside world and judge. But underneath that, love, grace, all of the things, always there. As I said, it's stronger than personal thought. Something may look a certain way and you may really believe it's fixed. You may really believe that it's cemented into your character or your life. But in the blink of an eye, it can change for the better. We can recover from mental illness. We can recover from physical illness. The light can come in. We find something within us that reveals the light that we already are. And to me, that has to be grace. There was a lovely quote when I was doing a bit of research earlier to talk about this, was that grace is love in action. I thought that was really, really beautiful. And it does, it points back to what we teach. We are not separate. We are part of the whole. There is no hierarchy. We are one. Can you see how that would be grace? Can you see how that inquiry into who you really are is grace in action? We are one single being playing all these different parts. Seeing that we are the infinite light of consciousness playing in form. To see that we are caged in this human experience, but we're not a prisoner. We came here to play. We came to have the game of life, to experience life, to enjoy it. One of my teachers, and I've said this on many of the talks, is be grateful in your highs and graceful in your lows. Imagine if we could do that all the time. But just knowing it allows me to do it a little bit more, to understand it a little bit more, to see who I am. I'm going to finish with a Zen quote and then I'm going to hand over to Gem. And the quote is, "Show me your original face, the face you had before you were born." Gem.
Thank you. And I'm understanding it quite a lot more now. I mean, what I gathered from what you were saying is, to me, it feels like grace is allowing the true self. So no judgment, non-attachment, unconditional. Grace is always there, but you sometimes hide it from being human, I guess. To me, it feels like to be in grace, to be graceful, is to accept whatever is happening without judgment and without trying to change anything, because it could never be any other way. So it's like flowing through life the way it's meant to be without you, throwing your toys out the pram, as I said earlier. Is that more along the lines?
I think that's perfect. I think that's a lovely way to look at it. And it's kind of where the rubber meets the road of grace, isn't it? It's that I don't have to react to the world. I can love the world exactly as it is, because obviously I would be in a graceful state when I do that, because I'm not in any resistance. So absolutely, it's definitely, grace to me would definitely be connected to that. Would be how my being would be if I was in grace.
Yeah, because what you're saying as well, like when they say you're falling from grace, and it's almost like the modern world has put grace as something that you can be attached from, but you can't be, can you? It's just hidden. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. It's just veiled again by thought. As we talk about every week, thought is a beautiful, wonderful thing that we get to experience all of life via, but also we get really caught up in it and it clouds who we really are. But that isn't because we're broken or because the system's not working. It's because that's who we're here to be. We're not here to be oneness, otherwise we would never have come into human form. We're here to have this experience of separation. Now, I can't say to you, well, I'm 100% know that everything is one and that we've all come from that, because although I feel it and I do know it 100% to be true, I can't tell you that because you are supposed to have your own experience. What I know is that when I talk to groups, and we reach hundreds of people, if not thousands of people every week, is that what they are feeling is the truth of that statement that we are all one. Everything else is great. The conversation's amazing. We will have insights. There's things that are revealed from within. There's things that we say that people go, oh my God, I've never thought of it that way. But the true essence of why people listen, as far as I can tell, is that there's something that resonates with them about the oneness of life. Now, we can't quantify that with our minds, because how can we measure oneness, or what you would really call nothingness, with a mind that measures with units? The mind has to have measurements. That's where judgment comes in. There's something other than the mind for it to judge. So if you think about oneness, mind melts us a little bit. It's like the mind can't conceptualize it. So we have to kind of melt away, but we can feel it. We do have that feeling that there is something there that, it's just like, oh, yeah, I get that. I can't explain it, but I get it. Now, we do our best to explain it. But even as I said earlier, we're pointing to fire with ice. The closer we get, the harder it is to get the words. If I had the experience while on the call right now of having a glimpse of this oneness that I have had in the past, I would not be able to speak. Words would leave me. It would just be, the experience is so rich, and there isn't a me to speak. And again, that's so hard to conceptualize. Our mind goes, what the fuck? But that's what it is. It's a disappearing of the self back into the formlessness. And then there's something really rich in that experience, that when we come back into the form, we are changed. Something is different about who we are. So yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to explore, but it's really hard to explain.
It is, and it's like what we're trying to do, and that's why it's so important. Like at the beginning, we say, what does it mean to you? Feel it, try not think it, because we're trying to explain something that's formless and then put it back into form. And it's not impossible, but it's never going to have that same meaning, that same feeling, because it's inexplainable. It's like trying to turn, I can't think of an analogy right now, but it's very hard to do unless...
Turn silver into gold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. There was a quote that I saw earlier by Friedrich Schiller, and he said that grace is the beauty of form under the influence of freedom.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. My mind doesn't quite grasp it, but it feels beautiful. Again, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the feeling. That's what we said at the beginning, was go with the feeling. I know for a lot of you come on the call every week because you leave feeling better. You leave feeling more peaceful. And that's what this is. That's what we're looking for. Once you hit that good feeling, you know you're hearing something, whether it's conscious or unconscious. There's something within you that has heard something. And that's it. That's all you need. You don't need to have a conceptual understanding of it. That's just what the mind wants. But the mind causes a lot of trouble. So, don't let it get involved with this. This is where we bypass the mind. We try to point to a home within us that is eternal, is always there, always has our backs, always is guiding us. That's who we really are. That's what creates such amazing changes and transforms our worlds. It transforms who we are. It transforms our minds. It transforms how we see the world. And it all comes from just a moment of opening. If anything, the conversation is about, You're dropping out of concept and being open enough to hear something new. And that hearing comes from you. And that's where the change comes. It comes from you. And that's what's amazing, that you get on these calls and you're open to that every week. The potential for us as humans is beyond what we can ever imagine. Now, will we reach that potential? Who knows? But at least we get to explore it. At least we see the blinkers of thought that we have that limit the potential. Because if we're made of infinite creative potential, then surely we're capable of much more than we think we are. And we get to see through the limitations because they're only made of personal thought that we have believed to be true and that isn't true. And the other thing is, I actually asked some people on Twitter before the call what grace meant to them, because I thought it would be really interesting to see what other people said. And Crypto Yoda, he said, it evokes an image in my mind's eye of a clear vessel to contain light, like clear glass. Grace is getting out of your own way, so to speak, a removal of friction, as in disgrace is like sandpaper, something like that. Wise put, it's being thankful. Legato, respect, truth, honesty, beauty, and balance. Gem, not throwing your toys out the pram. Degan Dude said, grace is accepting what is and coming to terms with it. And I think that's really similar to your interpretation, isn't it, Gem?
Yeah, and it's interesting because everyone has their own feeling or their own description. But I think when you feel it and it's a knowing, like you said, it's although it's your knowing and you know it to be 100%, that's going to be sort of the same for everybody, isn't it? Everybody believes to be true what they know to be true until they see something different. I think questions as well are always really good for these kind of conversations. We have an anonymous question, and as always, just message me and I can read them out for you guys. So, I have been going through a breakup, and it is only when I'm emotional that I feel out of sync with who I really am. Is being graceful not getting our emotions involved?
Oh, what a great question.
Yeah, it's thrown me.
It's really interesting. So I guess at the deepest sense, it would be a yes, but just the simplicity of coming back to logic, coming out of emotion and into logic will allow you to be calm and not be so upset about the breakdown of the relationship. When you're in your emotion, you're going to be out of your logic. Okay, that's what always happens. We're not logical when we're emotional. It leaves the room. When we come back to logic, that is when we're seeing more clearly. Of course, that will be being more graceful. Now, the depth of how much grace you're seeing in that moment would depend on your, I guess, your state of mind, your level of consciousness, whatever you would like to call that. Everyone calls it something different. So I can be in my logic and seeing things quite clearly, but be quite direct and maybe not in the peaceful feeling, but I can go deeper and be in the peaceful feeling of feel more graceful. So it's almost like there's a bandwidth there for me. And again, it can be different for you, but for me, it's like from being in emotion and, you know, blaming the world or being really upset about something and really caught up and logic not being there, to being completely at one and just isness and allness and wonder and love and peace and grace. And I'm bouncing around somewhere on that bandwidth at any given time, all the way up to being in emotion and out of logic. You know, just because we understand this doesn't mean to say we don't get caught up. Of course we do. So it's that bandwidth that we get to play with, that we get to kind of almost notice where we are. So if I'm on the end of the bandwidth where I'm really caught up over a breakup and I'm really upset, if I catch myself, come back into the now, come back into the moment, the emotion will dissipate and logic will come in and I will just feel calmer. And that calm could lead to a sense of grace. Absolutely. So it's really interesting to kind of play around with it yourself and see what it means to you. But I think a really good guide when we're going through something like a breakup and we're really caught up is to notice that when you're in that emotion, you don't make decisions, you don't do anything. You kind of allow the emotion to be there until it passes, and then you'll come back into your logic and you'll see clearly again. And we can think in a breakup that we're upset all the time, and it's not. If you actually observe, it'll be 20 minutes every few hours, or an hour a day. There'll be times where the thinking comes in about the breakup. The thinking leads to the feeling. It becomes overwhelming. We feel the grief and the loss and whatever it may be, but then that will fall away. It's the wave of thought feeling that we're always in as a human being. Where that wave is dictates our experience of the world. So how you're seeing the breakup, even with that, it's always going to change. We look at a breakup like a static thing, but your experience of it will not be static. It'll be in this wave of thought feeling over and over and over again. And that wave at first can feel like a tsunami, and then it gets less and less and gentler until it's gone. And suddenly we find that I'm feeling okay. I'm okay now. I don't feel how I used to feel 3 months ago, a month ago, however long ago. And that's what we forget when we're in the tsunami, that it will become less and we will feel better, and we do get over things. We really do. And that's because we have a system that's meant to. And it will kick in and we will always feel better. And that, again, we could look at as grace. The grace of the human experience is that feelings don't stick around. They come and they go. They're not set. They're not static. They're fluid. So, yeah, I hope that helps.
And that question's really made me think, how useful actually are emotions when you're, in your daily being throughout life? If you're highly emotional, it's going to be a lot harder to navigate, isn't it? At what point are emotions actually very useful?
Well, they're part of the human experience. I think being too emotional, again, we don't want to judge, because I was quite an emotional person before I came into this understanding, and my emotions have definitely lessened. I still can be emotional, of course, but so we don't want to discount emotion. It's definitely there for us to have the richness of being human, from falling in love and the bliss and the feelings of that, to the grief and the loss when we lose somebody, and the whole bandwidth in between. But to be constantly ruled and in emotion, I don't believe is very helpful. I think we can step back. I think this is where the understanding really comes in, that we can really begin to see that our emotions actually don't add anything of worth generally to the moment that we're in. It's actually when we calm down, when we come back home to who we are, when we see things clearly and we come back into logic, that we can act and we can show up much better in the world. So emotions have their place, but I think they've got a bit out of control. I think we need to really begin to see them for what they are, because, okay, I'm going to go a little bit into the principles here. It's the emotion that you feel, and for people that are overwhelmed by emotion all the time, it looks like it's because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G in the world. The things in the world are creating that emotion. So they're always emotional because there's always things going on in the world, in their relationship, in their work, in whatever it may be, whatever area that they get caught in emotion with. Okay. So that's how it will look. So there's always this barrage of the world coming at them, which then creates the emotion. So when you understand what we teach, you see that the world isn't creating any of that. That's all you. That's your belief system. That's what you've made up. Your beliefs creating the triggers that you feel, which then create your experience, which then is almost like a boomerang. It's constantly going out there and coming back to you. So beginning to see thought feeling as the creator of your experience and not the world frees us up, because then you're not at the mercy of the world to be constantly in your emotions by, your kids, your wife, your work, your parents, whatever it may be, the world itself. Suddenly that loses its power and we can show up in the world and we can really do a lot better, because we're much more in our logic. We're much more in our deeper understanding of who we are. We're much less thrown around by the world. So your question is brilliant, Jem, because actually that's what we're pointing to here, is less emotion leads to more action. Less emotion leads to more logic. It's much better for the world for us to be in our logical minds and to be present and to be thrown around by the world looking like it's creating our emotions. So anyone that's actually feeling really emotional and really caught up, and we deal with the spectrum of mental illnesses, be it anxiety, depression, those things are coming from the same place. They're coming from the thought feeling system. But when you understand that it's the thought feeling system, you can get some freedom from that, and you start to have a different experience of being you, because the sensitivity falls away, because suddenly you understand that you're a free person in a world that cannot create any feeling within you unless you've prior agreement to it within your system.
It goes so deep, doesn't it? But when it's so simple when understood, but when you're in it and, if you are going through a breakup or something's going on within your family or a big life event, to be kind to yourself when those things are happening, because, generally you will be more emotional and it's harder to navigate when those things are happening. So I guess to just try and simplify everything, not believe your thoughts when those types of situations are happening.
Yeah. The other thing I really want to point to, though, is it's still great to feel emotions. I wouldn't want to take away the richness that we can feel in love, the fire that we can feel when we get angry, the sadness we can feel in heartbreak. They're rich experiences. If we're not scared of how we feel, we can actually get quite a lot from those moments and those experiences. So it's not about deleting emotion from the experience. It's just about understanding it so that it's not always controlling and ruling our lives. It's in its proper place, and sometimes we're going to feel it. It's okay to feel. It's okay to feel.
Yeah, it's crazy because my mind's going to the points of when I've had to deal with stressful situations and everything just becomes a lot more blurry. And I think that is due to emotions and trying to figure everything out. So, yeah, for someone who is going through that, what would your advice be for someone who is emotional for dealing with situations?
Start with episode number 1 of OneMinding on any platform. I really think that's it. It's like, what advice can we give that is not going to be better than actually sitting and opening and listening to what we point to here? Go back, begin to listen to Sid Banks. Sid Banks is the founder of the principles. Any of the teachers that point to the truth of who we are, that's where you start. It's not in an exercise. It's not in an affirmation. It's not in a doing. It's just listen. Just listen and be open to the potential that life might work in a completely different way than you thought it did. And if you can open up to that and hear something, then things will begin to look different. And that's what we point to over and over again. It was really interesting because before we came up with the name for today was that you said, well, what are we going to call it today? Well, we always say the same thing or point to the same thing. And it's true, because we're pointing to the one fundamental misunderstanding of the human experience. That one fundamental misunderstanding is what creates every problem that you could see in the world today. You couldn't point to something and me not go, yeah, that comes from the misunderstanding of who they are. This comes from them believing that it's an outside-in world instead of an inside-out one. Because when you see it's an inside-out one, you show up differently. When you understand your experience comes from you, you show up differently. You want to create a better world. You do things differently. And it's really interesting to begin to uncover this and show people this, because it's so simple. People go to me, it can't be that simple. And I'm going, but it really is that simple. Only our minds want to complicate it. Always. That's what the mind does. But again, come home. Come and listen to something deeper. Come and inquire. Just have that little bit of fascination of, oh, I wonder if there's something true in what OneMinding is saying. I wonder if I can inquire a little bit more and see something more deeply. And that could be from listening to the podcast. It could be working from me. It could be listening to Sid. It can be from anything. But that inquiry is where what you're looking for is. And don't doubt that. That doubt will be your mind, will be your ego Do not doubt that what we're pointing to is true, but go inquire for yourself at the same time. That's what we're talking about. It's like listen, but also go look. Go see what's true for you. Because there's a whole new world waiting for us to see. And that world appears to me too, because I constantly get my beliefs challenged and get to see something fresh. It's amazing. It's like, oh my God, that really looked true. I've been in this 10 years. I teach it. I still get blinded by my own beliefs. But then this thing we're talking about today, this grace comes in and it shows me. And as I see it, I wake up again. That's the beauty here. That's the grace here. And I just want to say that Nagato, who is still on the call, messaged me, and he's drinking tea while listening to OneMinding. A space is about grace and synchronicity, and the tag on his tea bag, it says, unity is the way of grace in harmony. How amazing is that? Unity is the way of grace in harmony. So for me, that's seeing we are one. Like Grace gave him the tea bag. It's all there. It's this beautiful synchronicity, this beautiful intertwining of all of us looking separate but being one.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. You need a picture of that tea bag.
You sent it. I'm just going to retweet it.
There's so much to be felt and so much to be seen. And for anyone that's listening that, you know, feels like, oh, there's so many things that you might have done in the past or so many different ways of trying to do this. I know that I had. And then it's like, well, this is so simple. And it really is. So if you're not getting it or it's not resonating, just keep listening and you will. But it's almost, I know at the beginning for me, it was like, there's nothing to do. I don't have to do anything. And I was kind of not annoyed, but I was like, all of those courses, all of those books, all of those things that I've done, they weren't pointing me in the wrong, well, they were pointing me in a direction of what I was looking for is outside of myself. And so all that work, you know, it had to happen for me to get there. But if you are new to it, it's going to be something very different than probably you've ever tried. So stick with it. And me and Molls' DMs are always open. Anything you want us to speak about in the future, because it is a journey for everybody and everyone's on their individual journey at their different stage. So questions and topics, you just don't know who's going to hear it on the podcast. Be open and be open with us as well about things that you think we should share, because it's really important.
Yeah, we're all learning together. Great point, Gem. You know, we're not sat here going, we know it all and you have to listen to us. We're like, yeah, we've been really lucky. Like Grace has come in actually and allowed us to see this enough to share it. But boy, have we got a lot more to see. We can all show up together and then think about, as we say, this ripple effect of the world, of you seeing it and then you sharing it, sharing the podcast with people that you know and love. Because a world that comes from love, that comes from grace, that understands these principles, that sees that it's an inside-out experience, will be a much better world. That's why Gem and I created OneMinding. We truly believe, we know in our hearts that the more people hear this, the better the world will be. And we can only wake up one person at a time. You know, it's the person that listens and the next person that listens and the next person that listens. And if they're ready, they will hear something. And that hearing will lead to a transformation of who they think they are. It literally is living in a new world, but nothing changing, but how we see it, our understanding of it. It is a paradigm shift. There have been many paradigm shifts throughout history, and I truly believe that understanding the principles is another one. It's a way of seeing the world as it really is, as it is created by us. And that's a really freeing and powerful thing to experience. And it's a really blissful and wonderful thing to experience. And again, not all the time. I don't feel blissful all the time, but when I do, it's like I know where it's coming from. You know, I've explored enough so far to know that that isn't coming from the world, that that's coming from me. We're not special. It's available to everyone. 8 billion people are this grace. 8 billion people underneath their thinking are amazing. We can see how far away some humans have gone from that, but we have to understand the oneness to truly love and change the world. We have to understand who we are. Gem.
Should we do our announcement?
Yes, please.
Well, the good news is our new website, OneMinding.com, it has been live for a couple of weeks, but I think we've made the final touches and we'd love you to go and check it out, have a look at it. We've managed to get all of our old episodes on. We've got some YouTube videos and yeah, we've had to do quite a lot of it ourselves towards the end and it's nearly there, but we're really proud of it and we'd love you to check it out.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I'd like to thank Carl Ripdo for our original logo on there because he created that and we love it and it's throughout the website. And we'd like to thank Baby Ches who funded the website and Gem who's finished the website because there were some bits that weren't done and she's really kind of spent a lot of time trying to learn how to do this. And I think she's done an amazing job. So we'd love you. Please go to it. Please subscribe. Please share it. And we also have, if anyone would like to help us, we've got the support and donate page. And now people can donate monthly. And only if you can, there's absolutely no obligation, of course. But if you can, then you can support us every month and we can carry our message forward. What our vision is when we get to the point that we can, we would love to actually do live courses as well. So every month there'll be a live course that we put on because these are wonderful, podcasts are wonderful, but, for some people it will be that being listened to, having that live interaction, probably on Zoom I would have thought we'd do it, or one of those platforms where we can actually show up and connect with people in real time, face to face, we think would be a brilliant thing. So that's what we're looking to do. That's going to be happening at some point. Obviously, we had the rebrand. We've had a lot going on, but yeah, we'd love you to go and take a look. I'm really proud of it and I'm really proud of Gem. Thank you, darling.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been such a journey learning everything. And I'm really excited to see what the future brings. I think courses are definitely the way forward. We're always going to do the podcast. I think having something regular every week is really important, but the world is changing quickly and it does feel like bringing people together and empowering people to keep spreading the message because they're kind of dedicating their lives to what's going on in the world right now and they want to make change. And I think OneMinding is the platform to ground people, to get that message out. It is really important. So as Molls said, if you can support us in any way, then just go to the support us page. And we just love doing it. We love doing it with you guys. And we know this is the future. This is how we can create a mentally healthy world. And that creates a mentally healthy financial system, a mentally healthy education system. We have to go back to the basics. And the basics is what we are teaching here. And it will implement through everywhere through life. It will ripple through every part of life. So just thank you for all being on the team. And you'll hopefully all join the courses and get your friends and family and things because it is huge. I think you guys see the vision as we do and just really grateful to have you all here.
Yeah, and obviously the courses will be free. Our aim is that everything that we do, other than my private practice, because I do have to earn a living, is that everything that OneMinding do is free. And the hope is that actually I will still continue to do my private work, but that we can have the funding that we can actually spend a lot more time on OneMinding because the reach of OneMinding is huge. I mean, I can't remember, is it 105 countries, Gem, that we've been listened to so far? Is it that?
I think it's more than that. I know we had 105,000 unique listeners. That's pretty huge, especially like with the videos and things. I can't say too much, but we may have confirmed a huge guest today that will be coming on OneMinding in the next few weeks. You'll all have heard of him. And when we start getting some guests on that we've talked about, people that inspire us, people that are real movers and shakers, OneMinding is going to go from having this many listeners to hundreds of thousands of listeners. And you all are such a part of it. Well, 110 countries.
I mean, so if you think about the potential of this. You are the grassroots. A lot of you have been here since week one. Some of you that listen after have been here since week one, and people that have joined sort of 6 months ago, a month ago. This is really the beginning of something, and it is so powerful. You know, I get so excited at the thought of the potential OneMinding has in the world. It's not just OneMinding, it's all the other wonderful teachers that are pointing in this direction too. But obviously OneMinding is our baby. That's what we want to share. That's how we envision change. And we're really, really blessed. And, you know, to have the audience that we've had so far, to have that many listeners, to reach that many countries. And, you know, you don't know how you've shared it, who that's reached, if that's reached someone else. So you've all been part of that. And it's really beautiful. We really, really want to thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. And we're so excited. And as Gem said, there's a potential guest. And if we get that person, it's going to be amazing. And it looks like there's a good potential that we will. And we'll let you know when we do. But thank you, because you're our OGs and we love you very much.
We do. And thank you as always to Vamp, our sponsors. Just looking forward to seeing you all next week, being on the journey. Thank you for sharing, just being here. And we love you.
And I'm going to leave you with a poem by my favourite poet, and it's Rumi, and it is called Grace. Grace is not a word or a concept we can grasp. It is a state of being that we can only feel in our hearts. It is the light that shines within us, the spark of divinity that connects us all, the essence of love that flows through us, and the source of all that is good and true. May we all be blessed with grace, and may it guide us on our journey, bringing us closer to the divine and to each other in love and in compassion. Thank you, everyone.